Shalom, all praise to Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, double honor to the Apostle GMS. This is Anwar Allah coming at you another video. And in this video, I'll be focusing on Acts the 6th chapter and the first verse, right? To get some insight on the Grecians in this particular situation. Really just focusing on the first verse. So let's get right to it. Because this is a scripture that's, a lot of people out there in the world don't really understand who the Grecians talk about. Because you read the word Grecian, the first thing you're thinking of, white people. Or someone that's not a Jew. But let's get some insight on the scripture in this particular situation. Acts chapter 6 verse 1. And in those days, when the number of the disciples was multiplied, there arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews, because their widows were neglected in the daily ministration. Now, what does that word there mean, Grecians? First, you look at the word Hebrews. Let's go to the word Hebrew real quick.
Strong's G 1445, Hebraios.
Hebraios. Hebrew, any one of the Jewish or Israelitish nations, in the narrower sense, those who live in Palestine and use the language of the country, all Jewish Christians, whether they spoke Aramaic or Greek. So it's talking about the Hebrews, Israelites. Okay? Now you got the word Grecians.
Strong's G 1675, Hellenistes.
Hellenistes. A Hellenist, one who imitates the manners and customs or the worship of the Greeks, or use the Greek tongue, used in the New Testament of Jews born in foreign lands and speaking Greek. So what this particular scripture is talking about is giving you a difference between the Hellenistes and the Hebreos. In other words, the Hebrews who spoke Hebrew and kept those customs, and the Grecians were the Hellenistes, or the Jews who were speaking Greek. And of course, they were born in foreign lands, and obviously they would keep their customs. So it's talking about the same group of people. They're both Jews, they're both Israelites, but one just took on Greek customs, such as their language. So what we see here is you had Israelites that spoke Greek. It was known as the diaspora. So look at the word diaspora. This is the word diaspora on Britannica.com. It says diaspora, Greek dispersion. The dispersion of Jews among the Gentiles after the Babylonian exile, or the aggregate of Jews or Jewish communities scattered in exile outside Palestine or present-day Israel. Although the term refers to the physical dispersal of Jews throughout the world, it also carries religious, philosophical, political, and eschatological connotations, which eschatology means the study of the end. Inasmuch as the Jews perceive a special relationship between the land of Israel and themselves, interpretations of this relationship range from the messianic hope of traditional Judaism obviously the scriptures doesn't speak about Judaism. That's something totally different. The word that has nothing to do with the scriptures. For the eventual ingathering of the exiles to the view of Reformed Judaism. That's the point. You got the point. So the word diaspora, the dispersion of Jews among the Gentiles after the Babylonian exile, or the aggregate of Jews or Jewish communities scattered in exile outside Palestine or present-day Israel. So we see the word diaspora deals with the Jews that Israelites scattered among foreign nations. They're living outside of the land of Israel. So those Grecians in Acts the 6th chapter in the first verse were Jews who were speaking Greek. So they had to have been living among the Greeks. They had to have started to latch on to take hold of their customs. In particular, for example, their language. Okay? Now let's go to that word murmuring.
Strong's G 1112, Gagusmas.
Gagusmas. A murmur, murmuring, muttering, a secret debate, a secret displeasure not openly avowed. So they were saying among themselves, they're neglecting these widows in the daily ministration. Ministration meaning they were serving food. Okay? Of displeasure or complaining more privately than in public. See that right there. Okay? Now, why do they have such an issue with them neglecting the widows? Now, we know a widow was a woman whose husband is deceased, right? Because these Grecians had to have been Jews that was believing, and they were murmuring against the Hebrews because their wives were because the widows of the Grecians were neglected in their daily ministration. You look at the word ministration.
Strong's G 1248. Diakonia.
Diakonia
Diakonia.
of service, ministering. All right, right to the point. Right at the bottom. The service of those who prepare and present food. So they were being neglected. They weren't being given they weren't being given a proper portion of food. Now, why would that be such an issue? Deuteronomy 10 and 18. He doeth execute the judgment of the fatherless in verse 17, Deuteronomy 10:17. For Yahweh Shemel Shai, your power is the power of gods, or the God of gods, and Lord of lords, a great power, a mighty and a terrible, which regardeth not person, nor taketh reward. He doeth execute the judgment of the fatherless and widow, and loveth the stranger, and giving him food and raiment. So, see that? The stranger supposed to be given food and raiment. Those are Israelites. Okay? And that word they, yep. Let me see. That word there, God, a sojourner, a temporary inhabitant, a newcomer lacking inherited rights, a foreigner in Israel, though conceded rights. Said though or through. I think that word was through. Yeah. Oh, it says though. So said the stranger food and raiment. So that's what they were supposed to do. So guess what? They wasn't doing what the scripture said. So there was a muttering among the Grecians because they was neglecting their widows. So these Grecians obviously had to be Israelites that believed. And they had to have known the law to some degree. It had to have been taught to them to some extent. So there was a muttering among them because, wait a minute, hold on. You're not supposed to be neglecting the widows. The scriptures speak against that. And why would they do that? Because though they were Israelites like they were keeping Greek customs, so they were looking at them like they were strangers. Like, you're my people, but you're not acting like my people. Well, we're the same people, but you're not acting like our people. You're different than us. Like somebody that's acts different, they say, oh, that dude's a lame, he's a cornball. Like, treat him like an outcast. Because they still had remnants of the customs of the lands within them. That's why they were referenced as Grecians. Deuteronomy 14:29. And the Levite, because he had no part nor inheritance with thee, because the Levites dwelt in the suburbs, which are the priests, and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow which are within thy gates shall come and shall eat and be satisfied, that Yahweh Bashim Shai, thy power may bless thee in all the work of thine hand, which thou doest. So see, it says stranger, fatherless, widow. Someone that's fatherless, someone that doesn't have a father. A widow is a woman whose husband is deceased, and a stranger is someone that's not an inhabitant of this particular land. So these are all people who are destitute of having someone to support them. A woman whose husband is deceased, a widow, someone whose father doesn't have a father, and someone who's a stranger. They don't have family around. So these are all people who are destitute of some form of support. So you're supposed to look out for them. Malachi 3:5, and I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers and against the adulterers, and against false swearers, and against those that oppress the hireling in his wages, the widow and the fatherless, and that turn aside the stranger from his right, and fear not me, save Yahweh Shemel Shai of hosts. There you go. See? Mention widow, the word there, widow is there again. So you're not supposed to turn aside from them what was right. One last scripture, Deuteronomy 24:21. When thou gatherest the grapes of thy vineyard, so when you're out gathering grapes from your vineyard, right? Grapes from the grapevine, thou shalt not glean it afterward. So when you gathering out grapes from your vineyard, don't take the grapes off of it completely. Don't go back and just take everything off, every single last grape off. It shall be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow. In other words, it shall be for those who don't have their own, those who are destitute. Once again, stranger, fatherless, and widow. or people who lack some form of support system. Someone to look out for their welfare. So this is like a welfare system. So what they was doing in Acts 6th chapter, those Hebrews was going off. That's the reason why there was a muttering among the Grecians. So these are obviously Grecians who had to have been Israelites who had known of the law. They could have been taught the law by people who spoke Greek. Could have been taken advantage of to some degree because they didn't fully know the Hebrew language, understand it completely. But they knew that what was being done was wrong. You know, and that's what happens. Sometimes people don't know a language that someone else speaks. They think that person is, stupid. Like, oh, this person over there speaks Spanish. They don't know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? I use Spanish because that's like the second most popular language spoken in America. But that's how people are, and that's how they were dealing at that time. Verse 22, and thou shalt remember that thou was a bondsman in the land of Egypt. Therefore I command thee to do this thing. So remember, there was a time when you were a bondsman, where you lacked help, where you didn't have anything. So you got to look out for others. So that's all I wanted to bring out. Short lesson, just to give some deeper insight on that scripture that people probably really didn't think of. Through the spirit of Yahweh Shema Shah, of course. So with that, I'm going to close and say, oh, praise Yahweh Shema Shah, double line, say, Pasha GMS. I hope you learned something. Shalom.